Welcome to the Insurance Revolutionized podcast brought to you by Success Without Sacrifice. I am your host and coach, Cherie Sauer, and here on the podcast, we are on a mission to revolutionize the way women in insurance do business. We will be interviewing women who are changing the face of insurance, as well as giving you tips and inspiration to grow your agency to new heights without sacrificing what is most important to you. Let's get started. Welcome back to the Insurance Revolutionized podcast. Today, I have Kelly Racicot here with me today. Kelly, did I say your last name right?
You did. You got it.
Okay, good. My name gets butchered all the time, so I'm always afraid of butchering other people's names.
Yeah, I'm used to it.
But Kelly and I were just chatting before we hit record here, and I'm excited for today's conversation. We're going to talk a little bit about strategies for being a woman in this world of insurance. We're going to talk about balance, what it's like to be a mom and have a career, and also now being a mom with older kids and running an insurance agency. So lots of good stuff for you today. Kelly, thank you so much for being here. Would you tell our listeners a little bit about you, who you are, and your background?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here, but I've been in the insurance business for around 13 years now, I think. I started in the business as a career changer, and I had small kids at home, and it was definitely a challenge. I mean, if you would have asked me when I was in my 20s if I would have ever been an insurance agent in my life, I probably would have laughed. It's just not anything that was remotely in my line of sight at all. But my husband and I, we were young at the time. We had young kids at home, and we were kind of going through some different transitions, in our life where we moved, and my husband owned a business at the time too. And I just didn't want to continue to do the things I had done before. My husband is a chef, so he works in the restaurant business. And if you know anything about the restaurant business, it's crazy. And he works, anywhere from 60 on a good week to 70 to 80 hours a week sometimes. And I was in the same business, and I just said, you know what, this is crazy. We both can't do this. And so I left my career in the hospitality industry and started looking for other work. And this is where I ended up. And so people always ask me, how did you get into the insurance business? And it was sheer dumb luck. And I didn't have a whole lot of other opportunity going for me at the time. And I took a chance on something that worked out pretty well. I was pretty good at it. And, I think my lucky stars that opportunity literally fell into my lap because it was the greatest thing that ever happened.
Oh, I love that. And I feel like that's, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but 90% of the people who get into insurance, unless they fell into it because a family owned or something like that. But
Right.
it's like, I fell into it by accident, or I had to figure out something to earn an income.
Yeah, very few people have actually planned to get into the insurance business, which is kind of a shame because it's such a great opportunity, but what are you going to do?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I don't know that there's a stipulation, but if people are like, oh, I'm not a salesman, or that's a sales position, or something like that. And there is some sales to it, but it's also mostly about relationships, right?
It's all about relationships. Yeah.
How old were your kids when you got into the insurance industry?
Oh my. Without doing the quick math in my head, I would say my youngest was probably in first or second grade, and my oldest was probably in sixth grade, and my daughter must have been in fourth grade, so elementary school age.
Okay, so they were school age, and
busy
okay.
time. Yeah, when they start to get busy, with activities and whatnot.
And when you got into the insurance industry, so you are in Medicare now, is that where you started?
I started with Medicare and life insurance. So Medicare has always been a big part of my business. I've always worked with retirees. That's my comfort zone. I feel, that's my area of expertise. And so I've always done Medicare with a little bit of life insurance, some financial planning. And that has, when I first started, now I focus a little bit more on the financial planning side.
And I'm curious, what made you go, oh, I want to work with retirees?
Well, when I first got into the business, that was the organization that I worked with at that time. That was what they did, and their
Okay.
whole organization was based around that business model. And so I learned. That's how I got into the business, and I learned. And the more I learned about it, it's just such an interesting group of people. And it continues to evolve and it continues to change as this baby boomer generation of retirement, kind of gone through there. When I first got into this business, it was a different generation. I was still meeting with that silent generation. And so seeing the change and the dynamic of people in that same client base is just really, it's fascinating. It's really interesting, and the rules are different for them, so they need and want help.
That's well, and I think that you're not trying to force somebody to make a choice about something. Like they are looking for
Right.
help and you are there to serve them. So
Yeah,
that's
with
awesome.
Medicare, absolutely. Yeah.
What are some of the challenges when you first got started in the industry, whether it's, balancing, being a mom and a wife and a career, or whether it was in the industry itself?
I think that looking back on it, I think the first couple of years in the business, I really struggled with finding that balance. It was a brand new career for me, and I wasn't really sure. I wanted to be successful in the business, but I also wanted to be involved with my family. I mean, the whole reason that I left the career I was in before was to be able to spend more time with my family, with my kids, and not miss all of those birthdays and ball games and things like that. And so that was the number one priority for me from the jump. And being in the insurance business, that really gave me that opportunity to do that. But when you're new in the insurance business and you're working on a commission basis, you really have to find that balance where you're able to make a living, and that you're being productive and you're being busy and successful as a new person in a new industry, but also having the ability to have that freedom and flexibility. The longer you're in this business, the better that gets. But being new in the business, that is something that I think a lot of people have a challenge with.
Yeah, and what are some, so you obviously went into it with a mindset of I wanted to be successful, but I also knew I wanted to be present with my family.
Yes.
So how did that change some of the decisions that you made, or what you chose to, like how you chose to grow your clientele, I guess?
So I think that working with retirees, it is mostly they're retired already. So it's mostly daytime appointments, which was great. And that was another reason I really like to work with retirees. Every once in a while, you'd have somebody that's still working and you'd have to schedule an evening appointment. But what I really liked was I could say, okay, with my kids, my husband is off on Tuesdays or whatever day it is, or he's off on Mondays. This is the day that I have available that I can be away from the home in the evening if I need to be, without having to get a babysitter or anything like that. And that was it. So if I needed to schedule an evening appointment to accommodate someone's schedule, I scheduled it on a day that worked for me. And that was something that was really important to me. And if it didn't work, it didn't work. And, I would maybe have to schedule it with another agent, that was able to be more accommodating to their schedule. But for me, that was something that was just really important.
Yeah, I want to dive into that because you had very clear boundaries of what you were willing to do and not willing to do. And I have found this with the women that I've coached in the past, and the women that I know is, people have this, revenue goal of I want to hit, six figures, or I want to hit seven figures, or even less
Right.
than that. And it's like I will do whatever it takes to get there. Right.
Right.
And then 3 years down the road, they look around and they're like, holy
They
crap,
either
what
haven't
just
hit their
happened?
goal. Right. Right.
Yeah. And
If they've
so,
hit their goal, they've they've sacrificed more than they were willing to sacrifice, and it becomes a balance.
Yeah, and I think nobody goes into their career or business and thinking, I'm going to sacrifice my health, I'm going to sacrifice myself, I'm going to sacrifice my relationships.
Right.
But when you go into the mindset of I will do whatever it takes to succeed, and that's good to a certain point, except that it can be really detrimental to yourself
Absolutely.
and to those around you.
Yes.
So I love that you went into it in that mindset and you built and you proved that you can build a successful career and you can do this with
Yeah.
balance when you lead with intention. And you mentioned leading with values, your professional and your personal values has helped you during your career. Um, and that's one example of that, right? Of I knew I wanted to be present and I knew I wanted to spend more time with my kids. And so you set that
Right.
intention instead of leading with the fear of if I say no to this person, I'm going to lose and they're going to go to my counter, my competition.
Right.
And
Right.
instead you said, if I can't help them, I'm going to find somebody else who can. And serving them instead of it being, about the money. And sometimes that's hard because when, especially if you're a single mom or something like that, you don't have any other
Yeah.
income source. It's like, I have to do
You
whatever
need
it
to
takes,
protect.
right, to
Right.
survive. And so there is, some balance in that too. Um, but I
I think
think,
I think there's also the part of being realistic with your goals. And when you say I'm willing to do whatever it takes to be successful, are you really? And that's because at some point in time there is going to be that line that you're going to have to make a decision. Do you want to cross that line or not cross that line? And there's no right or wrong answer to that. But, I think it's being very clear with yourself and having a very honest conversation with yourself about what am I willing to do and what am I not willing to do? Just get real clear about what that line is and be okay with that. Just be
yeah.
okay with it and accept that of yourself. And, when you put those priorities in place, the insurance business can get very competitive. And that's I always struggled with that. There are good things that can come from, having a competitive atmosphere, especially if you're working with a large team or whatnot. But at the same time, everybody's playing a different game. Everybody's version of success is a little bit different, and the prize that everybody's trying to get is a little bit different. And so, I always say you just worry about your own game. Define your version of success, whatever that is, and work towards that. Develop a plan that is going to get you to your idea of success. And don't worry about what everybody else is doing.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up because so we work within teams, team culture, team performance, that kind of stuff. And um I find this even within teams is, people will have these bonuses, right? Like
Yeah,
if you get XYZ done, you get these bonuses. But some people are not motivated by that.
right.
And the reason is because they might say, I need more money. And so you think, oh, if I put this bonus in front of them, it's going to motivate them. But in
Mhm.
reality, what they're motivated by is fulfillment and
Right.
contributing. And so if you can learn how to understand what drives somebody, because what drives you doesn't drive somebody else, right? And what drives,
Right.
this person doesn't drive another person. And I'm that way. I'm not uh yes, I want money, right? For
Yeah,
freedom, but I want
sure.
fulfillment over, I mean, I always I make the choice of if I have the choice of money or fulfillment, I'm going to fulfillment, right? And so
Absolutely.
understanding what motivates somebody is really, really important. And I'm curious for you because Kelly, you now have an agency. So 2 years ago, you started your own agency.
Yeah.
And you have a team of people under you. Is that right?
I have a small team. Yes.
Okay.
I have a small
So
team.
I'm curious, uh, does this come up for you in your agency, or what does this look like? How do you lead your team? Um, and what does that look like when you're putting your professional and your personal values first? And how does that work within the dynamic of your team?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm glad you brought that up. That's a great question because this was something that I really struggled with in my previous organization and recruiting and training and being able to maintain. Um, I really, really struggled with that. And so when I opened my own agency, I really wanted to be very intentional about what the work environment was going to be like and what the expectations were. And to be able to be very clear that that's okay, that you don't have to work yourself to the bone to meet a goal. Let's decide on, let's talk together about what your goals are, what you want to accomplish in the short term and in the long term. And then let's put together a plan that helps you get there, that is conducive to your home life, your work life, that is in alignment with your values, that brings you joy so that you're not stressed out. And every time your kid gets sick and you have to take a day off, you're not completely freaking out because you've planned for that. As a mom, you're going to have to take a day off for an illness with your kid, or if you have doctor's appointments lined up, or if they have an out of town tournament that they're playing in. I mean, with kids, there's just so many different things that are going on all of the time. And that's to me something that is very, very important.
I love that that you are really leading your team in creating work-life balance. So not only for yourself, but also for your team members. Um, and really being I talk about like, being the CEO. Being the CEO, it doesn't necessarily mean, I mean, the general sense of CEO means you're working on your business more than in
Right.
your business. But in insurance, I find that most women are working in their business as
Yeah.
well as on their business. And so,
Yeah.
and on top of, balancing everything at home. Um, but I love that you went into the mindset and set it the intention of this is how our agency is going to work. And you don't have to work to the bone. You can have success
Yeah.
um, and have work-life balance. And people say work-life balance is, it doesn't exist. And I call BS on that
Yeah, me
because
too.
really, and I want to hear your opinion on this, but I find that people don't think work-life balance exists because they're just being reactive to their circumstances instead of being proactive and leading with intention. So I would love to hear your thoughts on that of why you call BS on that as well.
Yeah, I do call BS on that. I think that every day we make a conscious choice. When we wake up and we decide, you know, whatever it is that we have to do that day, if it's work related, if it's family related, whatever it is, you have a plan for that day. And I think sometimes, as I'm kind of struggling, if I'll be very honest with you, I'm kind of struggling with this a little bit right now because I am working so hard in my own business now, and it is different when it's your own. Um,
Hmm.
and so I have other people depending on me, and some days I struggle with that, and I'll bring work home with me, and and I'll catch myself. I'm like, wait a second, my kids are sitting in the same room as I am, and here I am with my computer trying to work on some spreadsheets or something like that. And my 20-year-old kids are hanging out in the living room with me. Like, that's an opportunity to spend some time with my kids that I don't always get anymore because they're adults. And so sometimes I have to even remind myself of that now because I don't have little kids anymore, and I do have a lot more freedom to work harder. My kids don't need me as much as they did when they were younger, but it is hard still. And you have to make that conscious decision of what your intention is for the day and what needs to be done. Get done the things that you need to get done. Stay focused on your day. Focus on the things that matter. I think a lot of us get bogged down with the minutia of busy work during the day that doesn't really produce a result for your business or a result for your team, or even a result for your clients. We just get bogged down in stuff. And I think sometimes just kind of an inventory on how are you spending your days? What are you doing during your work day that's causing you to be there for 8 or 9 hours? Can you, if I can get out of, if I work an 8 hour day, like full day in the office, that's, I'm beat when I get home. Like I try to keep my days to 7 hours so that I'm home in the afternoons so that I can try to be around for dinner time, if the kids are around or whatnot. Sometimes they're not even home, but it's, it's just a matter of being intentional. And I think for people who are employees, women who are employees, or not just women, but anybody who's an employee, you have to be especially careful about setting boundaries, because the more that you do for somebody, they're going to continue to expect that from you. And it's one thing, especially I think over the last couple of years, at post COVID, where it seems like everybody is short staffed and across all industries, nobody really seems to have enough people working. And it's just this excuse of, well, we can't hire anybody, or we need you to do this, because we can't hire anybody to fill this position. Um, that's that's really difficult, because as an employee, that's not your problem,
Right.
so I think that it's really important that as an employee or a business owner, whichever you are, that you have those clear boundaries, and you can be successful whether you're working for somebody or you're working for yourself. You can be successful, you can be top at your career without putting in, you know sacrificing your time for other things.
Yeah, there's a couple things in there that you said that I want to pull out. One, you said being a business owner is different, and it is because you have a responsibility. You have people relying on you.
Right.
And I find this in the insurance industry, especially in the kind of the trends are, you have the busy seasons that can be really chaotic and stressful, but then you have the slower seasons where then there's this pressure of, oh my gosh, we don't have as much revenue coming
Right.
in,
What are we
and
going
how
to
am I
do?
going to pay the bills? And so then you start to shift into making fear-based decisions, and
Yes.
even getting into that busy work, right? Because the busy work is mind numbing. It's like
Yeah.
I don't have to think about it, like I can just do it.
Right.
um and so part of like the work life balance we talk about is really being aware of your stressors and like what is draining your energy, and how can
Yeah.
you delegate, outsource, automate. And financially that's not always possible, but a lot of times people aren't, I find women, men and women, I shouldn't just say women, but aren't even aware of their stress or what's draining their energy. And so then it ends up, sometimes they'll be like, oh, I just need to hire a VA to get this off my plate. When in
Uh-huh.
reality, maybe that wasn't the right choice or the right hire. But one of the things that you said, kind of on the topic of awareness, is, and nobody's perfect, right? But the
Yeah.
fact that you caught yourself in that moment of like, wait a minute, what am I doing? What am I doing right now? Like, I want to be spending this time with my kids. So is this necessary for this moment? And one of the things that I always talk about, um, checks and balances, this is something I had to do in my own life, is I had to start asking myself, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? Who am I doing it for? And is it worth it, or can it wait?
Yeah.
Because when I had small toddlers, not even toddlers, but they were smaller kids at home, like preschool age, and I was trying to run a business, and I found myself, it was hard to have boundaries, or even like, even if I wasn't working, but I'd be on social media and my kids are wanting my attention. And I'm like, oh, hold on, I'm reading this, article about how to be a better mom to you. Wait a
Right.
minute, like,
Isn't that ironic?
what? Like, that doesn't even make any sense, but we
Right.
get in these
We get
habits and these,
sucked in.
yes. So I love that you have enough awareness, and because I think because you're leading with intention, and you're leading with that, like, I want to have this work-life balance, your mind triggered you of, wait a minute, like, do I need to be doing this right now? Or what is more important in this moment? And sometimes the more important thing is stuff's got to get done sometimes. And that's the most
Right.
important thing. And like you said in the beginning of, just make the choice and then own it.
Right.
Decide what you're willing to sacrifice in that moment and what you're not able to sacrifice in that moment, and be okay with it, instead of just doing it because you feel like you should, or because you have to, or whatever the reason is. One of the
Yeah,
other things that
I think
oh,
that's
go
the
ahead.
I was just going to agree with you. I think that's the key, is just there's no right or wrong answer. It's your values and having that honest conversation with yourself of what's important, and what is important, that is urgent today, that needs your attention immediately. And I think that it's important to be able to align your personal values with your professional values, because they do overlap, especially as a business owner. You don't get days off. When you own a business, it's a 24/7 operation. And sure, there's times where you aren't engaged in active work, but it's constantly your responsibility. And so, I think that that's important, that those two areas of your life are aligned, so that you have less conflict. And when a decision needs to be made on where your time needs to be spent, it's easier to make, because you just follow your values.
Yes. Yeah. And I think on that same topic of knowing what to say yes to and what to say no to, because your calendar can easily get bogged down. And and
Yeah.
that's one of the things that we hear a lot is like, I don't know how to balance it all. Like, I don't, my calendar is managing me. And really it comes down to, like, are the things that are on your calendar, are they things you value, and are they priorities? And are you saying yes to them because they're your values and your priorities? Or are you saying yes to them because of people pleasing, or
Right.
uh, and as women,
Yeah.
we're servant
Yeah.
leaders, and we are people
Yeah.
pleasers by nature typically.
Absolutely.
And so, it can easily, you get to the end of the week or the end of the day and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm
Yeah.
exhausted.
Yeah. It is
um,
exhausting, and
and
that's hard to do. It really is. I still struggle with that, is saying no sometimes. And I always feel guilty because I'm getting better at it. Then I always feel guilty for saying no. And that's tough, but
yeah.
I also know that it's just needs to be done.
Yeah, and it's a muscle.
It really
using your
is.
using your no muscle, and
Yes.
also, really digging into, why is that guilt there? And usually
Right.
that goes back to, past experiences,
Sure.
childhood, things like that. And I think even just for women and society, um, there's this message that we are people pleasers.
Yeah. That we should
And
be all
we,
things to all people.
sorry, say that again.
That we should be all things to all people.
Yes. Yep. Yep. And I think it's an interesting dynamic too. And I talk a lot about this. Women are the CEOs at home and in work. They are the decision makers for all the things, whereas men are one or the other. And that's just because of history, right?
Right.
Men were usually the providers, women stayed home. But then
Right.
there was this transition where women then also became, they had careers and started
Yeah.
businesses, but the responsibility still
At
stayed on
home
women.
stayed the same. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I even, like, with that whole guilt, even, when we talk about like delegating, like even delegating at home, sometimes women, it's either they
Yeah.
feel bad asking their husbands to help because, oh, well,
Right.
they just worked a full day. Well, so did
Right.
you. And even if you're a
Right.
stay-at-home mom, like, you just worked a full day.
Right. Yeah.
um,
It is.
and
It's
or
tough.
I'm the only one that can do it the right way.
Yes. And I think that's a big part of it too. It's funny that you brought that up, because I just read something this week, and I don't remember where I read it, but it kind of struck me. And it was just a quote that said something to the effect of, as young girls, we were told that we could be anything we wanted to be and we could do anything that we wanted to do. But what we heard was that you have to be everything and you have to do everything. And
Yeah.
that's kind of where we're at. And that's why we're all losing our minds on
Yep.
occasion.
Yep.
And, and that's, I think that's part of maybe getting older. And, my kids are older now, and realizing that it's okay to you need to give yourself some grace
Yes.
and give yourself a break, and the weight of the world is not actually on your shoulders. And it feels like that sometimes, but that's not the case. And I'll never understand why we as women feel like we need to have this appearance of, having our act together all the time and constantly looking like we're put together and our kids are looking good and involved in all the right activities. And why do we all hate that as women? We all hate it, but yet we all do it to each other. And so I just never
Yes.
understand. We could all just kind of get together and say, you know what, can we not do this anymore? That would be great.
Yeah. It's interesting that you brought that up, and I think I talked about this in one of the other interviews, but there was a period in my life where I was doing just that. I thought I had to look a certain way, and I thought to be a good mom, my kids needed to look a certain way, and if their hair wasn't done or their clothes weren't matching, then I wasn't a good mom. That's
Yeah.
truly what I believed.
Yes.
And I don't know why. I don't know where that came from, but there was a really distinct moment in my life when my my kids were, I don't know, maybe like 5 and 3 or something like that. And we went to a birthday party. And I remember being stressed out, getting myself ready, getting them
Yes.
together, making sure they looked perfect, making sure their hair looked, was all done up. And part of it was because we were going to this birthday party, and a lot of the women there made more money than I did. And I felt like
Yeah.
they were more successful than I was. And, they lived on these beautiful houses, or, they lived in these beautiful houses. And
Yes.
so I felt like I had to, um, I felt like looking a certain way, then I could fit in,
You would
right?
fit it. Hmm.
And I remember uh, one of my kids' friends' moms came in, and she's a Division 1 basketball coach, very successful in her career. And half the time feels like she doesn't have it together, but she comes in, and her kids are in mismatching clothes and their hair's a mess, and she comes in and
Hmm.
she's like, I was just asking my husband if should we make the boys comb their hair, but we're already running late. They're already like 20 minutes late to the birthday party, and they had to make the decision: do we make them comb their hair, or do we get to the birthday party so they can have fun? And they chose
Right.
to come to the birthday party so they could have fun. And she's like, and then I come in and I see your kids in these cute button-up shirts, and their hair's all done, and
Yeah.
and it was just this, like, she felt like a bad mom because of what she saw. And I was like, wow. And that
Yeah.
was a real turning point for me, because I was like, why do I admired her that she was
Yes.
willing to show up in that
Absolutely.
vulnerability and get
Yes.
her kids to that party regardless of how it looked on her. And
Yeah.
that was the point where I was like, my priorities are way off.
Absolutely. I
I do
think
not
we've done,
value
yeah,
like,
we've done so much damage to ourselves that way.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so after that, I really started to open up and kind of share more of my struggles and with other moms. And it's amazing how much other women started to open up and like, yes, I struggle with
Yeah.
this too, or I
We're all
hate this
going through
too,
it.
and nobody talks about it.
Right. Yeah. I
So,
I have an interesting perspective on that now, just because my kids are older. And so my daughter, for example, she'll be 21 next month. And she's in college. She's not getting married anytime soon. But, it's important to me now for her to understand that you're in school, she's very smart, she's bright, she's in college trying to get an education so that she can be successful in her career. I don't ever want her to feel like I did, when I was raising her, and that it's okay to just be. It's okay to be frantic. It's okay to be a little stressed out. It's a little bit okay to be, out of sorts. And that's normal, and everybody's like that, and my boys are getting older, and I want them to be more of a partner, in their households, because these generations are changing. And so hopefully whenever, they're married and they have kids, they're taking more of an active role at home, so that their spouses are able to work and feel like they can be successful and things like that. And it is nice that the balance is starting to shift, but yeah, I think we're still struggling with that quite a bit.
Yeah, and I think part of it is too is women just need to ask for help.
Yeah,
Um, and most men um are willing to help, I have found anyway. And
yeah,
there's some who aren't, like this is just how it is, and
yeah,
kind of stuck in those old ways. But most of the clients that I've worked with, it's a matter of like empowering them to ask for help. And like
yes,
it's okay to ask for help, whether that's from your spouse or from your kids or from a mentor or
right,
a friend. But as women, we put on this persona of, you know somebody will ask, hey, how can I help? Oh, I'm good.
yeah,
It's just I'm good. I put on the superwoman cape and everything's fine and I can do it all myself and I don't need anybody's help, because if I ask for help,
yeah,
then there's something wrong with me.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
um
Yeah, I think we do ourselves a great disservice in that, but and hopefully that will start to change. And I think, a big part of that is just being aware that you're doing that to yourself, and
mhm.
being aware that you don't have to do that to yourself, because everybody that you're so afraid of what they're thinking about you, they're going through the same thing, and they're so busy worried about what you think of them that they're not even thinking about you. So
100%. Oh my goodness. uh what are so just on that topic of like, I would love to hear just some really tangible, like, what are ways that you ask for help, or maybe ways that you automate, delegate, outsource, whether that's in your life or in your business, to help you kind of maintain that balance?
ooh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Now you can put me on
Put you
the
on the spot.
spot that I have to be like on here. I didn't I don't need any help. What are you talking about? Good. No, I think at home, like I said, my kids are older now, so they're quite capable of taking care of themselves. Um, but I do ask, for some help around the house. I am working more hours now than I was years ago when they were smaller. And again, that's just because I have that kind of freedom now. And you know, so, asking them to just kind of take care of some things around the house that need to be done. My husband works a lot of hours, and he works nights, so just making sure that some of the heavy lifting, if needs to be done around the house, especially in the summertime with yard work and things. My boys are great about helping with that kind of stuff. Um, at work, it's a little bit more challenging for me, just because I am a newer business, and being September will be my 2-year anniversary of opening my doors, and that's really exciting. But I still have a lot of stuff to figure out yet. I'm still doing a lot of kind of experimenting with my systems and making some changes with some things that need to go. I did outsource my payroll, which was, you know, a huge weight off of my shoulders. I'm in the process of outsourcing some of my other bookkeeping and things like that. I've hired a VA, which has been a tremendous help. So I can get some of that day to day operational stuff that has to be done. That's really where I struggle with, is just the day to day operational that has nothing to do with taking care of my clients or talking to new clients. It's just the stuff underneath that nobody ever gets to see that needs done. And I think I struggled with being able to trust somebody else to do that with my baby that is my business.
Mhm.
And so and that's given me a lot of breathing room, just being able to let some of those things go. I still have my finger on it very, very closely, but not having to look at it every single day has been immensely helpful.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, and especially as like you're so new in business, as you should have a pulse on all of that. But the fact that you were willing to do it, even though it felt scary, right? To
Mhm.
like, trusting something to somebody else, that's really hard. I think especially for us as women. I think men are really good at this. And women, for whatever reason, we really struggle with I don't know if
Delegation.
it's delegation, yeah, because trusting somebody
Yeah,
else to do it
right.
and take it on and to do it the right way, or yeah. One of the
Yeah.
things that you said too was seasons. That's something I wanted to point out is you said there I'm in a season now where I can work more. And
Yes.
so, one of the things that I just wanted to point out is understanding that there are different seasons in life, and there are different seasons even within the year of your business, right? Of
Yes.
like, eh, this is a season, and if you have young kids, there's going to be a time where you're able to work more, and being okay in the
Absolutely.
season that you're in,
That's
instead
so
of
important.
wishing that you're in a different season, right?
Yeah. I love that. I absolutely love the way that you put that. I just think that that's so important because especially if you have kids at home, I my youngest just graduated high school, so this has been kind of an emotional week for me because he's my baby and he's my last graduate. And when you really start to kind of look back and reflect on raising your children, and seeing the people that they've grown into and become, boy, does it go fast. And it's too important not to be there for it. And yeah, I can't imagine. I'm so glad that I did the things that I did. Being in the insurance business is such a great opportunity. I think, especially for moms and single moms, because you do have so much flexibility within your client's schedule to be able to do those things. It's just a matter of, setting that priority and being able to follow through on that and commit to it. And then once your kids are older, my kids are 18, 21, and 23. They don't need me at home anymore. They live at home, but they don't need me at home anymore. And, this is my favorite season with them. I love having adult children. They've turned out to be amazing people, and I love just being able to hang out with them, and talk. And that's something that's also really important to enjoy this season because the next season, they're going to have their own families and their own kids who are going to be busy with different things, and they're going to be the busy parents. So right now, I am just really trying to, enjoy this moment with where we're at as a family and where I'm at with my business. And I'm really thankful and fortunate to be able to do that.
Well, I was just gonna say, just like a kudos to you, the fact that your children want to be around you as adults and want to hang out and have a conversation. I think that there's a lot to say about that. And back to my story of like I had to get like what are my values and my priorities, and is my priority for my kids to feel like they have to look perfect, or do I want do I want to have a good relationship with my kids?
Yeah.
And it came down to
Yeah.
that of like, no,
Yeah.
I choose the relationship over the way that it's going to look on me, or what society says that it should be.
Yeah.
And so I think that just comes back to that like intention
Yeah.
of you really cultivated a relationship with them and a safe space for them to um come to you and
Yeah.
be able to talk, and that's
I think
and
so.
going into their adult life too.
Yeah.
So yeah, so kudos to you for just really leading your life with intention. And none of us are perfect, and we all have our things and our moments, but at the end of the day, you can just never go wrong with leading your life with intentions and with your values and really prioritizing what matters to you. And that's really kind of what I pulled out of this conversation today from you. Kelly, are there any like tips that you have, or even if it's just one tip for, whether it's a woman or, a mom that is in the insurance industry, and, just a strategy or tip for, and you and I talked about this before, but not so much competing with men, right?
Right.
But owning like who you are as a female, and
Right.
not from a competitive energy, but like what's just one tip you have of being a female in the industry, and what's talked about as a male dominated industry, but really is more of a female dominated industry. There's just more male agency owners, is what it comes down to. So
Right. Yeah, there's a lot more females in this business now than there were whenever I started years ago, and I love to see that. But yeah, it is still a heavily male dominated industry, especially on the property casualty side and especially on the financial side. It But I think what's important for women going into this field is, first of all, know your value. Know the value that you bring to the table and be very crystal clear about it. And don't let anybody take that away from you, because you have value. And so if you ever feel guilty about having to dip out a little bit early because you have to pick your daughter up from school or whatever, that's okay. You're a mom also, and you're doing it all, and you're amazing. And so know that value and be strong in it. And the other thing is to give yourself some grace. When you're feeling stressed and you're feeling overwhelmed, so is the woman next to you. And we're all in this together, and just give yourself a break from time to time. And nobody's perfect, and you're doing the best you can, and you can be successful. Absolutely. You can be successful in this business. Just have to you just have to believe in yourself.
I love it. Like your tips gave me goosebumps. Literally, like the hair stood up on my head. Especially when you're talking about like know your value and be crystal clear about it. And if you have to leave for a kid's event or something, it's okay. And did
That doesn't
like
diminish your
women
value.
need that permission. Women need that
Yeah.
permission.
And well,
Um,
yeah, and they don't need that permission, but they feel like they do.
right.
And
Yes.
you feel like, because you have to, do something to take care of something in your family, or maybe it's not even your family. Maybe it could be anything. When women are often the ones who are, if you're not taking care of your own children, maybe you're taking care of a sick parent.
Yeah.
One, as a woman, that's going to be called to take your parent to the doctor when, your husband's not going to be called, your brother's not going to be called. It's
Yep.
going to be the woman that's going to be called to take that person. And so that's important too. And that doing those things does not diminish your value at work in any way whatsoever.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love that you just pointed that out too, is not just for moms, but women who don't have kids have
Yeah,
equal amount of
we have
responsibilities.
other things going in our lives besides our kids.
Yes. Yes. 100%. Yes. Oh, so good, Kelly. Can you just tell people where they can connect with you, if they want to reach out to you, or just want to
Yeah.
share that they loved your interview or whatever it is? Where can they touch base with you?
Yeah, I guess probably the easiest place to reach me is on Facebook. My Facebook handle is at yourhrsagent.com. Facebook/yourhrsagent.com. You can find me on LinkedIn under Kelly Racicot. And yeah, so my website is www.yourhrsagent.com. So yeah, check us out. And I would love to hear from anybody. If there's anything I can do to point you in the right direction, or give some sort of advice, I might be happy to do so.
I say this at the end of every episode because every single person that's been on so far has opened themselves up to that. Like, if you have a question, if you need any help, like that's one of the things I love about insurance is just the service mentality.
Oh yeah,
And
absolutely.
really helping other people. And so I love it so much. Thank you for being here, Kelly. It was such a pleasure, such a
Oh,
good conversation.
yeah, it was
I can't wait to go back and listen to it when it goes live. So thank you so much for being here.
all right. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for listening to the Insurance Revolutionized podcast today. We know there is a lot on your plate, so it means the world to us that you stopped in to give us a listen. We hope you will join us each week as we dive into topics such as mindset, goal setting, productivity, self-care, and so much more. We want to inspire more women to have success without sacrificing what is most important to them, and we need your help. If this podcast has inspired you, would you do us a favor? Would you take a minute to leave us a rating and a review or share with your friends? Let's change the face of insurance for women. Until next time.